Welcome back to Dave's Gone By on AM 1240 WGBB and live streaming on the web at am1240wgbb.com. And I am here with Marilyn Monroe. No, not really. I'm here with someone who is playing and channeling and going through the vision and the life of Marilyn Monroe and transmuting that into theater. And we have with us an actress who's been doing theater and especially film and TV for quite a while now, most known recently for her voice work, but also for, she was in the original New York production of Unidentified Human Remains and the True Nature of Love, a very popular, sort of crazy little play of its time. And now, as she told me just before we were going on the air with this, that young men, 12-year-old boys, kind of know her because she's the voice of Rogue on the X-Men cartoon, and these 12-year-old boys are rather grateful for that. But I'm rather grateful to have with us in the studio talking about her one-person show, not to mention another show she's in, called The Marilyn Tapes, about Marilyn Monroe. It's playing at Don't Tell Mama through pretty much to the end of June. Miss Lenore Zann, Z-A-N-N. Lenore, are you there?
I am. Hi, Dave. How you doing?
I am fine. How are you, Lenore? How's the show going?
It's going swimmingly, thank you very much.
Oh, already going into the Marilyn voice, huh? What is the key?
It comes naturally.
What is the key to getting that voice down?
The voice?
Mm-hmm.
The Marilyn voice. Well, to start with, obviously, it's rather breathy. But the thing is, I learned how to perform like Marilyn a long time ago. I started out in theater in Canada, and I was 16 when I became professional doing a lot of musicals and things like that. And I basically was discovered at a place called the Charlottetown Festival where they do original musicals, including Anne of Green Gables, because that's where Anne of Green Gables was from. Mm-hmm. And I was discovered in a concert one night where I did like a Marlene Dietrich imitation of a Barbra Streisand song from Funny
song?
Girl.
Oh, please, can you please?
Sure, I did the Cornet Man from Funny Girl.
Okay.
But I did it a la Marlene Dietrich.
Can we just hear a bit?
Sure, I'll do you a little bit of Marlene Dietrich. Men cluster to me like moss around a flame, and if their rings burn, I know I'm not to blame.
That's
Falling in love again, never wanted to. You know the rest of it.
And so you have Dietrich doing a Streisand.
Yeah.
Cool.
And interestingly enough, I was 18 years old, and I walked out on stage, and I did this number, and this author happened to be in the audience who had just written a rock opera on the life of Marilyn Monroe. And they'd been searching for a year for the right actress to play her. They checked out stars in Hollywood. There were lots of names being bandied about that were very well-known actresses at the time. But when I walked out and did this concert in Charlottetown Festival, Prince Edward Island, Canada, he turned to his wife and said, "That's Marilyn." Wow. So I had to start learning then everything about Marilyn. I didn't know anything about her. She was before my time, and I didn't really know her or care much about her before I started studying. But when I did start studying her, what I chose at that age, which has stayed with my work from then on, really, is I go for the authenticity of a character. I don't want to do an impersonation. I'm not interested in those. Mm-hmm. You can walk into any gay place in the country, and you could probably find a lot of guys who can do a great Marilyn Monroe impersonation. But I don't do that. I conjure up her essence. And for that, I just got books and books and books about her life, what people said about her, what she said about herself, and I went from the inside out. And interestingly enough, once I'd done that, and I didn't even watch any of her movies or anything, mm-hmm. The day that they dressed me up for this Hey Marilyn, that's what it was called, the musical, the rock musical, when they put me in the wig and the makeup and the dress, the sequin dress, for the very first time, I became Marilyn. And people were stunned. I would walk into a room and people would stop talking. They'd hold their breath. It was amazing. And I started talking and walking and acting like her. It was the weirdest thing. But I hadn't ever seen any of her movies or anything. And they were saying, well, you're doing the same mannerisms, the same gestures. And, what can you say? I just tapped into her essence. And it's the same thing now. I mean, I always ask for her blessings whenever I'm going to do a show about her, and, I feel that she chose me to play her in a strange way.
And the reason, though, I mean, you were playing her in that rock musical in Canada, but the story that you wanted to tell about her was different from that and different from what we've seen, I guess, in the Misfits. And so how is yours different?
Well, I did the rock opera about her, which was a great, lovely, frou-frou musical about Marilyn Monroe. It did talk about the pills and the booze and the husbands and stuff like that, but it only touched on that a little bit. And also, actually, about 5 years ago, I was asked to do another play about Marilyn that was a play version about her life. And again, it touched on the psychological stuff and the emotional stuff a little bit, but again, it didn't go as far as I wanted to go, what I would want to see about her, which basically is that she was a very intelligent woman. She was politically passionate about certain things like the civil rights movement and standing up for her husband, Arthur Miller, during the middle of the 1950s Joe McCarthy whole fiasco where people's lives were ruined by these guys. And she stood up for him. And things like in 1954, she was so incensed about this white-only policy that the clubs in L.A. still had that she called up the owner of the Macombo nightclub. And she said to the owner, she said, I want to make a deal with you. If you'll put my favorite singer on your stage, I will show up and take a front table every night, and the press will go wild, and you'll have a hit show. And that woman was Ella Fitzgerald. And he did put her on. And Ella Fitzgerald is quoted as saying, Marilyn Monroe was a woman ahead of her time, and even she didn't know it. So a lot of people don't know that about Marilyn. And I think that's something they should know, that she wasn't just a dumb blonde. And a lot of people still seem to think to this day that she was just a dumb blonde who was, trying to be smart instead of a smart woman who was really good at acting dumb.
But my problem with her always, I loved her in Some Like It Hot, and she was a great beauty and a great personality. But from what I had been reading about her towards the end of her career, she was unnecessarily impossible to the people that she worked with, specifically like Billy Wilder or anybody else on the crew of Some Like It Hot. And I guess you can always say there were reasons for it, but that impossible behavior is intolerable. And how do you explain or justify that? Right.
Well, for one thing, that's what makes her such an interesting character to play. Because there's two sides to her. She wasn't just all fluff and ice and prettiness and sweetness and light. She was a very tough woman to live with. She was totally committed to herself, and the world basically revolved around her. But my take on that, and which I show in my show, is that basically she was an alcoholic, a drug addict, who didn't get help. She really should have been put in a place to get clean for 3 months.
Well, you said she was in a sanitarium for a bit, wasn't she?
Yes, she finally, towards the end, she also attempted suicide a few times while she was with Arthur Miller. And at one point, after I think they broke up, she was put in a sanitarium again, just for a couple of weeks. And the doctor, which was a new doctor looking after her at that time, a woman, said she has a drinking problem and she wouldn't allow her to have any alcohol. And that was kind of the first time anyone had said that about her. It was always like the pills, right?
Right.
But in this particular case, this one doctor said, she shouldn't be allowed to have anything. No pills, no booze. And Marilyn started going crazy in there and wanted to get out. And so she called up Joe DiMaggio, who was, used to be her husband, but they were still good friends, and he loved her right till the end, as most Marilyn aficionados know. He said he would tear the place apart brick by brick until they let her out. And so they did. And it's almost a shame, because maybe if she had been forced to stay in there and actually really get clean,
she would be acting in movies with Jane Fonda now.
That's right.
Yeah.
There you go. She's going to be she would have been 79, I think it is, this June 1st.
Well, she could have still been alive,
right,
fairly
exactly.
vital, like a Hepburn kind of a thing. Yeah.
Well, exactly. Like, why not? And we're going to do a special show on June 1st, actually. Most of the nights I do my show at Don't Tell Mamas are all Sundays, like from Sunday, May 15th till June 26th. But we're going to do a special show on June the 1st.
Which would have been
for her birthday.
Okay.
Yeah.
By the way, did you see the revival that Broadway did last or 2 seasons ago of After the Fall? The Arthur Miller play, not obviously autobiographical, but certainly with autobiographical elements about his relationship with Monroe. What did you think of the piece and
I thought it was right on. I loved the play.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people apparently didn't, but I think Arthur Miller has been maligned in his life, and it's a shame because I think he does great work, and it's a shame that he's dead now. I almost had the chance to meet him. One night he was going to be receiving an award for his lifetime achievement at the Stella Adler Awards, and he was sick at the last minute. He couldn't come, and his daughter accepted it. But I was there, and believe me, I wanted to meet him so badly, but unfortunately now I won't get the opportunity. But I loved his work. I had seen it when it was last done in New York, with Frank Langella and Diane Weiss.
One of the critics, actually the one that I quote most often, and ironically enough, was John Simon, who just got, after all these, speaking of ageism, got fired at age 79 from New York Magazine this week.
Really?
Yeah.
Terrible.
But he had said about that play that basically Miller was washing his clean laundry in public.
Oh, right.
So that Miller is telling the truth, but it's a sort of truth that makes him look relatively good and guiltless. Did you feel that way? Did you feel that it sort of washed it on her part?
No, I don't. I feel that anybody who's ever lived with an alcoholic, and there's a lot of people out there, and in fact people that are listening right now that either are alcoholics or people that are living with alcoholics, know that it's very difficult to live with an alcoholic because they have mood swings. It's almost like there's two sides of the same coin. One side that feels grandiose and like everything's fabulous and I'm the best thing on earth, and then another part that hates themselves more than anything and feels like the lowest slug that could have crawled under any stone. And that juxtaposition of a personality makes for great difficulties in dealing with and huge mood swings. And of course, when they're drinking, they become like a different person. It's almost like a split personality. And Marilyn had that. And definitely had that. So for me, when I watch those scenes in After the Fall, I just go, yep, and here he is trying to take the pills away from her, trying to get her to stop drinking. But you can't make somebody do something that they want to do. They have to do it for themselves. And that's why everybody always says they have to hit bottom. And that's why a lot of the people in the families living with alcoholics are called enablers, including, I would say, Arthur Miller and Joe DiMaggio. They both were enablers. I mean, they didn't try and stop her drinking. Joe DiMaggio broke her out of that insane asylum, or where they were trying to get her clean.
Help. Yeah.
And Arthur, even in his latest interviews and even in his latest book, he talks about, he kind of, part of him feels guilty and he wishes he could have done more. But really, what they teach people in Al-Anon and these kind of things is you shouldn't feel responsible because it's up to the person. You cannot take the leopards off a leopard, the spots off a leopard. I mean, only the leopard can change him or herself. So I feel totally sympathetic with Arthur Miller about what he went through, and so I loved the play. I loved After the Fall. And
the way you speak about those kinds of problems and stuff, it seems like more than just book research.
Exactly. Yes, I'm a sober person, and I have been for 9 years. I've been through the eye of the needle and come out the other side.
So you hit bottom yourself?
Yes, I did. I hit an emotional bottom where I just realized, you know what, a lot of my friends have died from drugs and alcohol overdoses. And at the point where I decided to quit myself, I was in Los Angeles, and I actually got sober near Martin Luther King Boulevard. And it was a black woman who came to my door when I called for help, and they sent me this beautiful black angel, as I call her, and she took me to my first meeting, which was an all-black meeting on Martin Luther King Boulevard. And it was interesting. It actually helped inspire me to write the play because those people saved my life. They loved me to death. I mean, they loved me to life. They told me that, you don't love yourself right now, and we're going to stick around and we're going to love you until you learn how to love yourself. Now, if Marilyn Monroe had that kind of help at that time, she would still be around today to be performing.
But I'm not necessarily getting the connection between the fact that it was a black group in a black church, and the fact that you've written a solo, well, not a solo, but a two-person play about Marilyn Monroe.
Right. Well, the other person in the show is a character called Billy.
Mm-hmm.
He plays the piano, and he has, in the play, he is Ella Fitzgerald's musical director. So I'm riffing from the idea that, Marilyn did this thing for Ella Fitzgerald in real life. She really did. So she knew her, she loved her, she was her favorite singer. In my play, Ella Fitzgerald has lent Marilyn her musical director for the evening for Marilyn to do a show at Sammy Davis Jr.'s nightclub, the Coconut Grove, which was popular back then in Hollywood. And Marilyn has decided that she wants to come and do a special performance for an invited audience to get the record straight about the press saying that she's depressed and in a slump and that her career is finished. And this concert takes place a few days before her death of August the 5th, 1962. So really my play is looking at Marilyn from this young black man's perspective of what he saw in Marilyn that night and her love of all people, all races, all genders, everybody, gay people, straight people. She loved everybody, which is, I think, one of the reasons why she is so long-lasting today, her popularity. Not just her sex appeal and her sweetness and vulnerability that shows, but that love of humanity and animals that shines through her eyes. And so that is kind of the connection. And Billy has a couple of speeches there where you realize towards the end of the play that seeing her active alcoholism and dependency makes him reach a point where he realizes he has the potential inside of himself and he needs to do something to change. And that's where the connection is between the two, the experience in my life and the play. Well, hi there. This is Lenore Zann from the Marilyn Tapes, and you're listening to Dave's Gone By at AM 1240 WGBP. Yeah.
By the way, we are talking with Lenore Zann, who is appearing in a play called The Marilyn Tapes. And for more information about it, don't forget to go to themarylandtapes.com, or you can find out more about the actress herself. She also has a website, Lenore Zann, ZANN, .com, and find out more of her credits there. Now, recently you mentioned that you've been doing a lot of voice work in films and in television, such as Rogue in X-Men. I think we mentioned that at the very beginning. What other cartoons or shows?
Well, I play Wendy Waters in Rescue Heroes, which is really popular with kids. There's a lot of toys out, and I actually do voice one of the toys of Wendy Waters.
Okay.
Parents would know that show really well. Also, the other one that is popular with kids is called Dragon Tales. And I play a little boy dragon in a wheelchair in that one. His name is Lorca. And you know, I just put my hat on backwards, and you know, I can imagine what it's like to be an 8-year-old boy dragon in a wheelchair.
Well, someone has to, yeah. Okay.
And just recently, right now, I've got a new one that's on ABC TV called Dragon Booster.
What is it with you and dragons? I
think dragons are just popular right now, to tell you the truth. I think, you know, in that one I play a young Angelina Jolie type 18-year-old who races dragons with the boys and gives them a run for her money, and she's like the lead girl in the show.
So a whole new generation of 11 and 12-year-olds will be discovering your voice.
Yes, it's true.
Okay. You know, I wanted to get back to one other thing about the Marilyn Monroe piece. Since you read all those books, and since you did all that actual research on her, what's the consensus on how she died?
Well, there's so many stories about how she died. I do believe I know she was having an affair with John F. Kennedy.
Really what? That was she was having? Okay, yeah.
Yes, in fact, my composer who wrote the songs for my show, it's an original musical with original songs, not songs Marilyn Monroe really sang in real life, but original new songs. My composer,
David Rawley? Is that...
No, he plays Billy in the show. My composer's from Canada. His name is Cliff Jones.
Cliff Jones.
He's very well known in Canada. He's written tons of shows and tons of stuff for TV. And he wrote these songs. The only song that I do that she really did sing is Happy Birthday, Mr. President.
Right.
That's the only one. But anyway, that said, where was I going with that?
Her stuffing Kennedy.
Oh, yes, Kennedy. he said that he went out and had meetings with Peter Lawford at his beach house, and he saw pictures of Marilyn Monroe and John F. Kennedy together there.
Okay.
So, I mean, what more, I mean, and,
well, yeah.
Yeah, you know. And
not Bobby, though, just John F.?
No, just John F. He saw the pictures of them together, and that used to be their getaway, apparently. And, of course, Peter Lawford was married to the Kennedy sister.
Right.
Right? So, Pat Kennedy Lawford. But apparently, after John dumped her, after she sang Happy Birthday, Mr. President, because it was just too obvious, and, you know, there was rumors and stories starting to really get in the way of his, you know, of his job, Bobby apparently got interested in her, and they started seeing each other. And again, I know that she apparently had lists of political questions that she would ask these guys. When she first met them, she was totally interested in politics. She wanted world peace. She even had dinner with, like, Nikita Khrushchev one night, and she talked about how could the superpowers achieve world peace. So she was really, like, a smart woman who was very, very politically astute. And I'm sure that's what interested them in her, too, other than her beautiful body and whatever.
She wanted peace, and they wanted a peace. It's kind of a...
Very cute.
And then apparently the Kennedys got it. But
they did. And I do believe that Bobby had an affair with her. And it's my belief, I like to follow the story that she was seeing Bobby Kennedy right up to the end, the day that she died, and he possibly was in town that day. And he broke it off with her, and she was devastated and started drinking and taking more and more pills that day.
Oh.
She was seen on the beach, walking on the beach with her housekeeper by some people later in the afternoon that same day, and they said she was stumbling and she was mumbling, and she just wasn't with it at all. And that was like 2 or 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Then later that night, they say, she went to bed, she played her Frank Sinatra songs, and she had oodles of bottles of pills from her different doctors that she was kind of playing off one another, kind of like Winona Ryder apparently did. You know, they found tons of bottles of pills on her that was from different doctors all over the city of Los Angeles. Well, Marilyn had 2 or 3 psychiatrists and doctors, and she had lots of different pills. And it's my belief that an alcoholic drug addict who is actively still using, there is only one end to the story. It's either the mental institution or the grave. So whether anybody else had a hand in it or not, she was going down. And at her age, at 36, like, that's prime time for somebody to start to really show the ravages of the disease if they haven't stopped. And so the toxicity of all those drugs in her system was definitely built up in her system and in her liver. So if she did take too many that night, it makes complete sense to me. I would say that possibly Bobby Kennedy was called, and they all rushed over, and they checked it out. It was like, oh, yeah, she's dead. Let's get the hell out of here, so to speak, or let's get out of here.
But it's much less likely that someone pushed her out a window or something.
I don't think so. I mean, you know, a lot of people think, oh, they gave her a needle, or, oh, they put enemas or something, but really...
Oh, I know.
Well, yeah, that's what they say. They say all these things, right?
Yeah, okay.
But that's based on the idea that there was so much toxicity in her liver. But that's because, I would say, it had been building up over the months and years of use. You know, of course she's going to have high levels of that in her system because she was doing it every day. And believe me, you build up a tolerance.
Right, and you need to take more and more in order to feel
exactly. And then when you do take more and more, you forget how many you've taken. So you'll take a bunch more. I mean, you know, I know because I used to, at the peak of my using, I would take 3 or 4 sleeping pills, drink a bunch of booze, and then go out on the town.
No, you know, I know you were in Hollywood, but why did you start? Not why did you stop, but why did you start?
Me?
Yeah.
I wasn't in Hollywood when I started.
You started, what, in Canada?
Yeah.
When were you drinking beers at hockey games? I mean, there's no drugs in Canada.
No, I was never a hockey game type person. I started in theater at the age of 15, and I turned professional at 16. So at first it was like keeping up with the boys, because there's a lot of drinking that can go on in theater. You know, you do a show, it's hard, you know, hard work, and then at the end of the show everybody wants to go out and drink some drinks and relax, and then you can sleep in, and then you get up and you do it again.
Yeah.
Well,
I
that's what
thought
it
theater
was
people
for
had to
me.
be healthier than that. Movie people know, but theater people tend not to abuse themselves because they know.
I have to disagree with you. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I mean, some theater people are really good. Like dancers have to be really on top of it for sure. But acting, a lot of actors, I'm telling you, they used to, whether they still do now or not. I know some people still do, and I say, how do they remember all those lines and then still go on every night and do a performance? But believe me, there are still a lot of people that do. And towards the end, you do start losing your memory. You do start forgetting lines. And some of the people that I've known who've had to go on suddenly, like when they weren't expecting it, have forgotten stuff. And they freak out and they get stage fright and they don't want to go on stage anymore because it's really difficult.
Just to keep up with everybody, you started doing all that. And
that was partly it. But I think I also believe that you're born that way. You were born an alcoholic. It's in your genes. So if Auntie so-and-so was an alcoholic, or your grandfather or your father or whatever, you possibly have the possibility of being an alcoholic.
And your family, there was, or...
Oh yeah, we've got alcoholics in our family, but sometimes it takes a while for people to realize, it's more than just a young person liking to go out on the town and have a good time. Which is why it usually doesn't hit people until they are older that, this is a problem. Because when you're younger, you can excuse it off. You can laugh it off. You can excuse it off because a lot of young people go out and drink. But trust me, most alcoholics do start having blackouts early on. And so for anybody who tends to black out when they're drinking, chances are they're an alcoholic. And they say nobody can tell you you're an alcoholic. Only you can decide whether you're an alcoholic or not. And if you think you have a drinking problem, you probably do.
Yeah. Well, no, I disagree. I think people can tell you tell whether you're an alcoholic. It's whether you want to get help or not. But I think I could tell. If I saw someone black out, 3 times in 1 week, I'd say, might be, So by the way, what about family life and stuff while you were being an actress and both in those kinds of times and beyond? Or were you married then? Were you married now? What's the?
Well, I've been married twice.
Okay,
I was married for 8 years to a musician, and it was
that
difficult.
explains so much. Okay.
It was difficult because we were both on the road. He was on the road, and I was on the road, and I was doing movies, all over the world and stuff. And it's very difficult to keep a relationship together when you're, in opposite ends of the globe constantly. But also, I think we grew apart. And our needs changed. Like, I wanted to come to the States, and he didn't. He wanted to stay in Canada. He didn't like the States. He didn't want to have anything to do with the States. And I felt that my career and my destiny lay here. So I've actually moved here recently. I've only been here. I got my green card and moved here in 1999.
That late?
Yeah.
Well, because your film career goes back to the early and mid 80s.
Yeah.
And
I've been
those were all in
tons
Canada?
of films. Most of them. A lot of them were some of them were in Europe, some were in Australia. A lot of them I booked out of Canada and I shot other places.
Right.
Or I booked them in L.A. because I was going back and forth to L.A. too during this whole time.
You did a lot of, I guess like a lot of actresses of that, you did a lot of horror film.
Yes.
So were you getting typecast
in the 80s?
The horror
No,
mode?
it was more just that's all they were doing in the 80s. In Canada, it was like they were tax write-offs for dentists. So by the time I was 24, I'd already been murdered probably about 12 times in many nefarious ways.
Oh, good heavens.
But, it was experience. It was experience at acting on camera, being able to hit your mark,
True.
Whatever, I would have loved to do different types of roles in films at that time, and I was ready to, but there just wasn't the opportunity. Since 1999, I've been getting much more interesting roles in film and television on both sides of the border.
What are some of the recent things you've done? And then also don't forget to tell people about the other project that you're working on simultaneously with the Marilyn tapes. Yeah.
Well, I did a movie by Adam McGoyan. Adam McGoyan, who's a well-known Canadian filmmaker. He did The Sweet Hereafter and Exotica, Family Viewing, a bunch of movies like that. Very interesting films. I've done 2 films with him, one for television and then one that went to the Cannes Festival. I played the lead in it called Babyface. and that was a fabulous, fabulous opportunity. I don't know if you can get that here in the States, but it's called Babyface. It's on, it's on my filmography on IMDb, on the IMDb Google thing.
Or maybe it'll be Amazonable or eBayable soon.
Yeah, but it's a fabulous movie. I play a single mother who's got like a 13-year-old daughter, and she's got a 24-year-old boyfriend, and it eventually becomes a threesome a trio where the boyfriend starts making love with my daughter underneath me. I don't know about it.
I like this film. I like this movie already.
Yeah, and it's pretty intense, and it's very, very sad and scary, and it happens every day. What
do you mean it happens every day?
Well, it's like, believe me, these
maybe in
things
Neverland.
happen.
No,
I mean, it's blue collar stuff. She works all night in a laundromat or something, and the boyfriend is home. He's 24. The daughter's 13. She's growing into her sexuality, and he starts doing inappropriate things, and the daughter actually responds, and so then something happens, and
but it's not like a threesome thing. It's more like a triangle kind of. Oh, okay.
Exactly. That's what I mean. That's
okay. Just making the FCC happy here. Okay.
No. I was in the very final episode of the Chris Isaak show, playing a woman who's the vice president of the Swingers Association of America.
I like your career.
Did you know swinging is as American as apple pie?
I guess it is, especially for Kennedys.
That's a line from my show.
Oh, man.
I was on Andromeda, which was a science fiction show. I've done a lot of television lately, and Law and Order.
I do have to actually bring this part up, because I noticed this on one of the releases for the show, and I'm not sure if it's true or still true or what. But if you want to sell tickets to the Don't Tell Mama production of the Marilyn tapes, or even for its further thing, you get naked.
I do.
You do get naked, but it's not sexy. It's kind of sad or really depressing.
Oh, it's dramatic.
Oh, okay, so it's sort of sexy.
Yeah.
You'll sell some tickets.
Oh, yeah.
All right,
definitely.
okay.
I mean, you know that birthday gown Marilyn had on when she sang Happy Birthday, Mr. President?
Uh-huh.
Well, you know how it looked like she had nothing on underneath that?
Right.
And everybody's, kind of wants to see underneath that?
Right.
Well, in my show, they do.
The phones are ringing. This is being pre-taped, and the phones are ringing anyway. I mean, so it's reason enough to go see Lenore Zann in the Marilyn tapes, but you're also doing another show at the same exact time. You keep your clothes on in that one, I think.
I do.
Oh, well, but see it anyway. What's that one called?
That one's called Trailerville, and it's going to be on at the Blue Heron Theater. It's a new play by John Dufresne, who is an American novelist. He writes fabulous novels, like Louisiana Power and Light is one of his novels. They're going to be turning it into a movie supposedly soon. He also has a new book out of short stories called Johnny Too Bad, which got a rave review in the New York Times just recently. And this is his first play. It's called Trailerville. It's set in a trailer park down south in Louisiana. And it's sort of this white trash family, live in a trailer park. I play a character called Pug. And
okay.
She likes to watch the all-day marathons, the telethon on TV where, they have all those poor, adorable, crippled children, and you can call in and send them money. And my husband, or boyfriend in the show called Bromo, he's got a great line. He says, what kind of sad-ass country do we live in where you have to, poor, crippled children, sick children have to beg for money on TV?
Well, it's true, actually.
Exactly.
Hey,
and it brings up the Medicare situation and stuff like that. And it's playing from June the 3rd until June the 26th.
June 26th.
And that's every night, other than Sunday nights.
Right, so Sunday nights is the Marilyn show, the Marilyn tapes at Don't Tell Mama, and then at the Blue Heron Theater, it's Trailerville, the rest of the nights of the week, from June 3rd to June 26th.
And hopefully I won't get my characters mixed up. I'll have Pug doing a strip scene and Marilyn being a trailer trash.
It's not that far away. No. But the one thing that kind of strikes me is that you're doing all these kind of Southern and American-ish characters. Were you born in Australia?
Yes.
I mean, you couldn't tell from how long were you in Australia?
I lived there till I was 8. And then we sailed over on a ship to Los Angeles. And we got off the ship in Los Angeles, and then we drove all the way through America through the Badlands and the Grand Canyon, and that was my first view of North America.
Wow.
Until we landed in Regina, Saskatchewan, Canada.
That's Regina with an R, yeah.
Right, which was the prairies country, and we lived there for about a year. My dad was a professor, and they wanted to see the world, you know. And then they heard about how beautiful Nova Scotia on the east coast of Canada was. So we went over there, and we went all the way across Canada, again, drove through the Rocky Mountains and all of that, and then landed in Nova Scotia, and they've been there ever since.
But did you make a conscious effort to work on your voice or lose your accent, or you never had? You do not sound Australian at all.
I mean, I started acting at 15. I played Adelaide in Guys and Dolls in a local production.
Yeah.
You know, and I had to do a New York accent, which came very easily for me. But I'm a singer, too, you know, so most singers, I find, have an ear for accents and for pitching your voice. That's why they're good with voiceovers, too. A lot of singers and a lot of people from Broadway do these cartoon series because we have a really good ear for voices and, you know, pitching our voices. So I went to university in Toronto for 2 years, and they taught me how to speak down and out instead of down and out, you know, down and out, which is very flat. And I just focused on that. I just focused on not sounding Australian, not sounding Canadian. And my first big role I got was what? Marilyn Monroe, who's American. And interestingly enough, all the television and film roles that I've received and gotten in Canada were all Americans. I played Californians. I think partly because I am Australian, I seem American because we're like kind of like cowboys too in Australia. You know, it's a new country. We're very larger than life almost, with lots of energy and lots of sort of like chutzpah.
Right.
And Canada's more of the British line, where they're a little bit more reserved, they're more quiet, a little bit more polite. And I'm not really, I'm polite, but I'm more just larger than life and more colorful sort of. So I think that's why I seem to fit in so well here. And New York, I'm telling you, is my new home. I love it.
So,
I don't want to leave.
But can you stay here? Will you?
Yeah,
cool.
I've got a green card, and I've got an apartment, and I love it. I'm in the village, and I'm telling you, I just think this city, out of all the cities I've lived in all around the world, I fit in here. I mean, it's so stimulating. You walk out your door, and it's stimulating. There's so much arts and culture and music and drama and wonderful regular people who just are fabulous character studies, and people have been nothing but kind to me here.
In New York?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
It takes no offense, but it takes a foreigner to figure that out.
I'm telling you, I love New York. I'm going to be here for a long time to come, so you better get ready, better get used to it.
Certainly hope to see you in a lot of theater around here, but people can see you all through June, pretty much.
Yep.
In 2 different shows. The Marilyn Tapes, which is at Don't Tell Mama, which is on West 46th Street. That's Sunday nights only. But, of course, if that show goes well, there is the hope to move it commercially.
Yes, exactly.
To, like off-Broadway in the year ahead, I would say. And then
probably in September.
Right, that would make sense. And at the same time, at the Blue Heron Theater, Trailerville is playing through June 26th. And they both star my very special guest, Lenore Zann. I guess the last question before I let you go is there a role that you've always kind of wanted to play?
Okay.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, there is. And actually, I'm allowing myself to play a little part of her in this show about Marilyn Monroe because it was also a role Marilyn dearly wanted to play and never got the opportunity to do. And that role is Lady Macbeth in the Scottish play.
I was going to say King Lear, but yeah.
Yes, she always wanted to do it, and she wanted to do it with Marlon Brando on Broadway. And
wow.
She didn't get the chance, so guess what? I'm giving her the chance in my show.
To do a little bit of Lady Macbeth.
Yeah.
Well, let's hear, you know what, why don't we go out on that? Why don't we get a little bit of Marilyn Monroe as Lady Macbeth, as done by Lenore Zann.
Come, you spirits who tend on mortal thoughts, unsex me here, and fill me from the crown to toe top, full of direst cruelty. Make thick my blood, stop up the access and passage to remorse, that no compunctious visitings of nature shake my fell purpose, nor keep peace between the effect and it. Come to my woman's breasts, and drink my milk for gall, you murdering ministers. Wherever in your sight the substances, you wait on nature's mischief.
All right, we're all going to get some tissues now, and...
You see why I've got her doing that?
Yeah, well, yeah.
It suits her perfectly, don't you think?
Well, yeah, I could see it. Let me think, especially later in her life when there was a darkness there. And yes, I guess she could have.
And the mad scene and going mad, which she does in real life and which she does in my play with, the Arthur Miller and the misfits and the booze and the pills and searching for her pills. It's kind of like trying to rub out the red blood off her hands.
True.
Yeah.
And you know what? We can only think of what it might have been, and maybe that's in some ways maybe that's the best thing too. Because had she done it and it had been a laughable disaster, then we'd be like, oh well.
I know.
Shame the pills didn't do her in before she did that show. But.
But I'll tell you what, though. You know what I'd really like to leave Marilyn on a note of?
What?
One of the very last things she was quoted as saying just before she died in an interview with Life magazine, in which I used this direct quote actually at the end of the show, and to me this is the message of the show. She says, "But what I really want to say is that what the world needs is a feeling of kinship, Everybody, stars, laborers, blacks, Jews, Arabs, we're all brothers." And she said that in 1962. So I think it's very topical for today.
Well, thank you for bringing up all those topics about Marilyn Monroe and about the theater and about, incestuous naked people and everything else.
And I love New York.
and loving New York. Best of all. And we loved having you here in the neighborhood. Thank you so much, Lenore Zann.
You're so welcome. And thank you, David. Come on down and see the show.
I will. Thanks
so much. Come up and see me sometime. Bye.
Bye-bye.